Hello and welcome to this video. I'm the Drawing Penguin. I do concept art and illustrations in traditional media, and today we're gonna go through one of my drawings in my sketchbook. We'll be doing an interior scene of some living quarters inside a spaceship or maybe a space station. And I'll try to give you some insight on my process and possibly a tip or two for your own drawings. I'm going to try and keep this one short. If you have any questions, please address them in the comment section and I'll be very happy to try and answer them the best I can for you. If you do like this sort of thing, also give us a like, give us a subscribe. It really, really helps. So let's get into it. We're going to do some pencil work at first, and we're going to be defining our vanishing points. There'll be two of them, and the volume in which the drawing will take place. So we're going to be drawing 3 walls, and we'll be adding some elements such as a bunk bed, a computer console, something in the foreground, a big window, and a chair. So let's do this part quickly and talk about it when it's done. Okay, here we are now with most of the elements in place. I struggled a bit with the design. I was just slow that day. Things didn't work the way I wanted. But we have that bunk bed in the background. We have a computer console in front of it, a big window on the left with a chair in front of it, a box to fill up an empty space that I didn't like, and on the bottom right-hand side, a big box or possibly a table on which we're putting a couple of things. There's a bottle and a cup, and there'll be an ashtray later as well. So I'm going to start inking this, just the outlines, just simple lines, simple stuff. Let's do this and come back and talk about it some more. All right, now this is done, everything is outlined, and talking about outlines, we're going to do proper outlines on all this. Normally I'd use my Papermate Flare, which is super easy and quite efficient, but as if I wasn't frustrated enough, I decided to practice with my brush pen that day. And it's not a tool I'm really comfortable with. I need some mileage on it. It's gonna get messy. But anyway, here we go. Everything that has a basically a space behind it, I will put a nice thick line over, as you see right here. And we're gonna do that for pretty much all the items on the drawing, as well as around the window to show that the frame has a bit of depth to it. So again, let's time-lapse this ever so frustrating process and talk about it when it's done. So there we go, my bold outlines are in place, and now it's time to put some details in this drawing, starting with a keyboard for this weird computer console inspired by some 80s and some 60s design. I like to do this. A lot of people see Wall-E in this drawing, but it wasn't intentional. So anyway, now yeah, it's time to put some details left and right, some labels, some handle here to open this box, and we're going to be as well implementing a couple of shelves under the bed where we'll be putting some clothing, some boxes, some folders, any little item that can make it look like this place is lived in. I think these details really help when you're trying to make a drawing like this, show that the place is being used and it has a purpose. And it also it's linked to my fear of empty spaces in a drawing. I don't like big flat surfaces with anything on it, so it's got to have some texture, some item, some point, something on it. We'll be doing a lot of that through this drawing. Now at least the frustration of drawing with the brush pen is gone, so I'm going to be a bit more relaxed as I go through this. At least until we go to the coloring, which will be a bit challenging as well. But we'll talk about that again in a moment. We'll be filling up here a little shelf, a small one just next to it, and I'll be adding a little step as well, so that the person who lives here can get into his bed without too much discomfort. All right, let's time lapse some more and come back in a few seconds. Right, here we are again. Now you see in the background it looks a lot more filled. There's a lot more stuff going on, although it's just three little boxes with stuff in it. I've added a couple of little doors as well next to the bed, thinking that might be some more storage space. We've put an ashtray on this table here. We're going to put some coffee in that cup. Or is it coffee? Because that's definitely not water in that bottle. Let's see. Anyway, we're about halfway through the drawing time-wise here. This drawing took me about an hour and 40 minutes. And we are somewhere around the 46, 47-minute mark here. I spent longer than I wanted on the design of this thing. Again, it was a slow day. My brain just wouldn't cooperate with me too much. And talking about these things, sorry about my voice today. I'm unfortunately a little sick, but I didn't want to wait too long before posting this video. Anyway, we'll still try and keep it short, but also not rush through it. I'd love to have your comments about the duration of the vids and the quality of my rambling. Any pointers will definitely greatly help. This is a work in process, and I'm learning as I go with these. So anyway, back to the drawing. On top of the bed here, I've added this big wide rectangle. That's going to turn out to be my light source. We're going to be putting a big neon light in there, which will be casting light on the ground. It will force me to do a couple of drop shadows, which is really not my strong suit, but something I need to practice. So it was a good experience to do them. There are better ways than mine to do them, but you know, practice makes perfect, they say. Here I added as well some kind of vent in the ceiling, and I will be adding later on a couple of hanging cables. Again, because big flat empty spaces, they're not my thing. I think it's better to put some kind of detail in there if you can, no matter how small. All right, so I'm reading a hint of the line work here left and right, and now it's going to be time to think about the color. So we're going to jump into that in just a second. All right, so a few details added again, some cables left and right, some cut lines on some panels, this sort of thing. And now it's going to be time to pull out the alcohol markers and do some coloring and shading on this thing. I fell back on those cool grays that I like so much. They're very blue, but they're technically cool grays. We're going to start with the ceiling, which is going to be the darkest part of the image if you don't count the space that's going to be outside the window. And we're going to be working our way down with lighter and lighter shades. The floor will be the brightest, and the edges of it will be a little darker. So let's rush through this as well and talk about it in a second. Here we go. So here I'm thinking about the bits that will be mostly in the light. A lot of them will be covered in shadow later. I like the idea of a little light hitting the top of this box here, just to make the image more interesting than if the light was stopping right before or right after it. So we're going to be doing that little corner there. Same with the chair. A little bit of it in the light while the rest will be in the shadow. I think these are little touches that make a difference. I'm trying to eyeball where the light will be, where it'll fall. There are much better ways, more efficient ways to do this, but they'll be for another video. So let's put some light in here before we get to the shadows. Most of the tones are now in place. The ceiling is the darkest. The walls are a shade darker than the floor. We're going to go do a couple of layers on this to make the difference stronger, and try to do a little bit of a gradient from the top of the wall to the bottom, just because there would be reflected light that would make it a little brighter. So we're going to go through this, working in layers, taking our time. Speaking ourselves in the third person. I don't know why. I'm sick. I'm sorry. So yeah, I'll be trying to just do a bit of a gradient on this. And once that's done, we'll be talking about harder shadows and the darkest bit of the image that are going to be give a bit of contrast to this blue mess we have now. Right, here comes that darkest shade. That will be for cast shadows. Again, I'm eyeballing things here, and it's not the best way to go. But I decided a long time ago on this drawing that it would have a sketchy feel, that it's not going to be super precise. I got too frustrated during the pencil sketching phase to have the energy at this stage to make it super neat and tidy. So eyeballing it, trying to make it as believable as I can without going through the motions of the proper way to do it. So we're going to be putting little shadows left and right here. They're mostly here to build up the contrast on the image. The chair is going to be a little messed up in terms of shadow, but I think I get away with it in the end, and it works with the general feel of the image. So here we go. We'll be darkening as well spots on top of the bed, behind the shelves that we have with the clothes and all those sort of things. Again, slowly building up the contrast on this thing. Time to redo a little bit of line work here because it's been masked by the layers of markers. The image here is starting to come together. Like, you can't overemphasize the importance of contrast in a drawing. Now it's starting to look like it's a real space, a real volume, that there's some real light in it. Took me a while to get there because we're at what, 1 hour 20 here in the video. But it's starting to come together. There's still a lot more empty flat surface than I'd like, so that's why I'm putting cut lines like these here, for example. And I know that I'm going to be putting as well texture on the floor, on the walls. We're going to make this place look a little rusty, a little dirty, a little used, just to give a bit more feeling, a bit more ambiance to the image. So we're going to be fitting a few details, and we'll time lapse through that and meet you in a second. So I've been putting a few blobs and scratches and lines left and right here with my pen, and I'm coming back in with a light warm gray that's basically going to make rust or dirt patches left and right on the walls, on the boxes, on the floor, everywhere. This makes the place a lot more lived in and make it look a lot older. It's pretty easy. It's pretty quick. I think it's a nice technique to give some atmosphere to a place. I might be using a couple of different shades of the warm grays, but we'll stay pretty light. We're talking 3, 4, 5 tops. There we go. Let's go through this. All right, adding a few layers here of markers to make sure it's nice and tidy. And time to put a little highlights in this picture. This is a new pen I've started using. It's very, very light, and it works a bit better in real life than it does on the camera. I'm still learning to use it, but I think it's an interesting tool. I can link to the description to all the gear I'm using. You'll see that it's most of the time the same. Here we go. This pushes against the contrast, and little highlights like this I think make such a difference to the drawing. They're more obvious in real life, and I might go back to using the Posca pen, which is much whiter and much thicker, much more opaque. Although I think these are growing on me. I've also started using a pencil that I don't think I'll be using in this drawing, which is a white colored pencil, very chalky in nature, and that gives great results as well. Anyway, let's throw highlights on anything that's shiny metal, anything that has an edge and light reflecting directly on it, and see how it looks. Now we're nearing the finishing touches. We've made that neon tube brighter, so it stands out a little more. I think we got a nice contrast going through the image. It's definitely looking used and dirty now. Been adding a little more of those warm grays on every crease on the floor where dirt would accumulate. And at that stage, doing more of that would be overkill, I think. So we got some tiles on the floor now. We got some texture, some material. Everything's pretty much in place. So nice, just adding a few little lines here and there, a few scratches on the floor, a few highlights, touch-ups, and the drawing is pretty much done. I had a conflicting relationship with this one. Its birth was a little painful to me. It wasn't easy. It wasn't one of those that just happened. It took some effort, and my brain wasn't cooperating with me. It did really well once I posted it on Reddit and on Instagram, but it took me a couple of days before I stopped seeing the frustration I had in it and see it for what it is, which in the end is not too bad. I'd love to have your opinion about it. Let me know what you think, and any sort of comment you might have on the video itself. As I said before, this is really new to me. I'm learning as I go. It's very much a work in progress, but I'm having a lot of fun doing those, and apparently a lot of you are having fun watching them. So I really hope I can continue doing those, and your feedback would really help me. Anyway, we're almost done with this. Just a couple of minutes left. I think we can round it up here. This is the drawing. This is how it is in the sketchbook. This is how it was posted. Unlike the last video I posted, which was reasonably easy in terms of drawing and coming up with the colors and the shading, this one was a lot more effort for me, even though it might not show. Bottom line is, whether it's hard or it's easy, do your drawings, finish your drawings, and remember, a bad or mediocre drawing is always better than no drawing. If there's anything specific you'd like me to talk about in my next videos, or not talk about, let me know again. I really would like some feedback on these. It helps me greatly. All right, this is it for today then. Thank you so much for dropping by. Thank you so much for checking out my videos. Again, a like and a subscribe go a long way to help me. You can also find me on Patreon if you'd like to give me more support. And you can find me on Instagram and Reddit easily. I'll put out the links below if you're curious. Thank you very much. Have a great day. I'll try and be less sick next time I do a voiceover. Bye-bye. Thank you.